around. So you had Ole Miss as the number one team in the country. Is Ole Miss the best team in the country?
You could definitely make that argument. I think when you look at these guys, offensively, they could have the best offense in college baseball. And I guess there's a team down in Baton Rouge that would make that argument too as the third lineup. But you can make the argument when you look at Ole Miss top to bottom, there's really not a weak spot. I think when you look at the pitching staff, over the weekend, John Gaddis threw well. Derek Diamond gave him 4 shutouts. So, I mean, he obviously threw pretty well. I don't even think he gave up a hit. Did he, Richard, if I remember right? So, I mean, he threw really well for them. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the problem you run into with college baseball right now, we were kind of talking about this on our podcast yesterday, is typically there is a team or two, like Arkansas last year, that we feel like is way ahead of everybody else. Texas was that team, but guess what? Texas, without Tanner Witt, the number 3 starter who would probably be most teams' Friday starter, with him on the shelf for the year, all of a sudden Texas has lost 2 straight games without him in the rotation. So suddenly Texas is vulnerable. So right now, I mean, you're talking about, I think, 10, 14 teams who I feel like are all capable of being the number 1 team in the country. So it's wide open right now.
We talked with Mike Bianco about this a little bit yesterday afternoon. I don't know if it's more common. It certainly is heartbreaking, these season-ending arm injuries that we're seeing. You mentioned Tanner Witt at Texas. It happened before the season began with Peyton Paulette at Arkansas. We've seen 2 guys at Mississippi State down for the year, Tommy John surgery, obviously with Landon Sims, who was the preseason number 1 pitcher in the country, according to you guys, and then Stone Simmons as well. Blake Money, we're still, I guess, waiting on official word out of LSU. Hopefully he's not out for the year, but we'll have to wait and see. What do you make of this? Is it becoming more common? Is it just that it always stinks when we hear about it and it makes it feel like it's more common? What do you make of the arm injuries?
I think a lot of it has to do with that COVID year. I mean, you think about it, that year just got, not only position players, but got pitchers kind of out of their normal routines. And last year you didn't see a lot of injuries, but I think it was just one of those, I don't know if it was just like, restarting and the arm kind of was able to build up a little easier. I don't know if it's just a 1-year delay. That's the only thing I can really think of. And that's the only thing that I've talked to arm care people, I've talked to coaches, and that's really the only thing they can think of is that it's just kind of a delay from that COVID year. And so, I mean, you're talking about at this point, Reggie Crawford at UConn would have been a first-team All-American 2-way player if he wasn't out. Carson Wisenhut's not an injury, but he's out for, PEDs, I guess. He said it was a over-the-counter generic drug. I don't know about that. But, he's out for the year. Peyton Paulette from Arkansas is out for the year. Tanner Witt's out for the year. Connor Prelip, we haven't even talked about Connor Prelip because it seems like he hasn't pitched in about 3 years. But, I mean, he could be the number 1. If he was healthy, he could very well be the number 1 pick in the draft. And he's not going to pitch for Alabama for 2 seasons.
It's really incredible. We have made it to the opening weekend of SEC play. Obviously, some midweek action is going to happen today and tomorrow. But when you look at the 7 series that we've got this weekend, there's only one that pits top 25 teams, and that's Mississippi State at Georgia, an incredibly important weekend for Mississippi State coming up. But when you look at these matchups across the league, is there a series that stands out to you?
I think South Carolina at Tennessee. Obviously, I'm looking at the wrong. Hold on a minute. Oh man!
So you got South Carolina.
You gotta love technology. No, I think I'm looking at the wrong.
I'll give you the 7. South Carolina's at Tennessee. Right on that one.
I'm not looking at the wrong weekend. I thought I was looking at the wrong weekend. Okay, South Carolina, Tennessee. I think when you look at that series, think about South Carolina. That showed me a lot about those guys. Is the fact that Texas kind of delivered a punch to them. And what happened? Will Sanders threw really well, and they pitched excellent in the series finale. Like, can they go on the road and do that in Lindsey Nelson? That is like a pitcher's worst nightmare. I think you look at Ole Miss at Auburn. Auburn, I think, is a better team than what they showed against Middle Tennessee. When I saw them, Joseph Gonzalez threw really well. The Trice kid threw really well. And, Tommy Sheehan threw well at Globe Life. And so they're pitching up until that Middle Tennessee series has been pretty good. So that's an interesting series. And I also think you look at, Kentucky and Arkansas. Arkansas is one of those teams that I feel like against UIC they started to play a little bit better. And then you have Kentucky, when you look at the job of Mick Mignone, the former Mississippi State assistant, Kentucky's kind of quietly played really well. They got a series win over TCU, and guys like Chase Estep and Cole Stump. You could argue with Blake Tidwell on the shelf that Cole Stump is kind of the most proven weekend starter in the SEC coming into the year. So with Stump, Chase Estep, and guys like that, Ryan Litter, of course, a potential All-American, that's a really interesting series. We'll find out what Kentucky's made of it. And A&M and LSU, Richard, not real sure what to think about that one. A&M's pitching's been pretty good in the weekend rotation, but their offense is striking out entirely too much. On the flip side, you've got a team that has struggled on the mound, and you mentioned Blake Money. It does actually sound like it's a wrist issue. I've checked with several sources. They insist it's a wrist issue. We'll see. But let's just say that he's not able to go this weekend. That kind of equalizes that series. And, of course, you mentioned State and Georgia. I think that's a big series for both teams, really. You look at Georgia as it had an opportunity a couple weeks ago in that series against Georgia Tech to make a statement. They were unable to do so. They did show me something with the way they played in that series finale, but they need a marquee series win. And the Mississippi State showing some signs now of playing a little bit better. Now they know they're not going to have Landon Sims. Now they know they're not going to have Stone Simmons. Now they can kind of turn that page and focus on the rest of the season. I almost kind of wonder, guys, if Mississippi State's going to go into the weekend with a little bit of like a little bit of pressure off his shoulders a little bit. Like, we're no longer going to be speculating whether or not Landon Sims is coming back. We all know what the verdict is on that. So I'll actually be curious to see if they play a little looser than they have today.
Certainly is going to be interesting. Maybe not the weekend with all the marquee series with top 10 matchups, but it's going to be a fun start to this marathon.